Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Tevaron here, and welcome back to my first ever set review for Magic Duels. This time we will be going over the white cards. And just as a reminder, these are my opinions and raw card evaluations, having never actually played with the cards before. If you would like to check out the colorless review, just click the annotation on the screen or the link in the description. Now, let's begin, shall we? First up, we have Acrobatic Maneuver. For a white and 2 generic, we have an instant that says exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Draw a card. So, this card can protect a creature from removal, or let you get multiple uses from enters the battlefield triggers. Plus, it replaces itself as you draw a card. That said, I'm not sure it's actually good enough to see play. There may not be enough worthwhile triggers to make this card playable. If it could target any creature, then you could also blink your opponent's creatures and gain an additional advantage by giving them summoning sickness and causing them to be unable to attack for the turn. That's not the case here, as it has to be a creature you control. I think there is a possibility that a Blinky style deck could see some play in Magic Duels. It's going to be very dependent on what people can get together from what's available, though. We shall see. Up next, we have Aetherstorm Rock. For 2 white and 2 colorless, we get a 3/3 flyer. Whenever Aetherstorm Rock or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get an energy counter. When Aetherstorm Rock attacks, you may pay 2 energy counters. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it and tap up to 1 target creature defending player controls. Alright, so this is a difficult card to evaluate. It is important to note that you can only do the +1/+1 counter and tap a creature 1 time for each attack. So that makes a big difference. In Paper Magic, I would say that the rock isn't good enough. However, on Duels with card number restrictions, I think that it probably is. In Paper, this card is competing for the 4-drop slot with cards such as Gisela and Gideon. But as you can only run one of each of those mythics on Magic Duels, I think the stock on this card goes up quite a bit, and I can see it fitting into several different decks. Angel of Invention. For 2 white and 3 generic, we get a 2/1 Flying Vigilance Lifelinker that has Fabricate 2. When this creature enters the battlefield, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, or create 2 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature tokens. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Well, this card is certainly strong. I'm very sad that it's a mythic though, only 1 per deck in Duels. Oh well. I think this will see play in both aggro and control strategies, probably mid-range as well. Most of the time you'll want to make the servos, as that spreads out the power and helps against removal. With Fabricate, it's probably correct in most circumstances to choose the servos, but there may be times when you need 4 points of lifelink. And if you do, then having the option is good. Aviary Mechanic is a white and a generic for a 2/2 Dwarf Artificer. When Aviary Mechanic enters the battlefield, you may return another permanent you control to its owner's hand. So, this card is reminiscent of a lot of cards from Magic's past. However, this time, the bounce effect is a may. You don't have to do it. I'm not sure how much play this will see, as it's not a human, though there is a nice little dwarfy deck shaping up from the cards of Kaladesh. But it is also an Artificer, so maybe in something like an Artificer synergistic deck. If there turns out that a deck can be competitive by abusing enters the battlefield triggers, using, say, this and then the acrobatic maneuver and other things, then this definitely fits into that strategy. I feel the card has potential, I'm just not sure if we will see it rise to that potential. Built to Last is a 1 white instant that gives target creature +2/+2 until end of turn, and if it's an artifact creature, it gains indestructible until end of turn. Well, it's a combat trick in the same vein that we've seen many times in the past. Maybe this will fit into an artifact deck. It's certainly better there, but I personally don't feel that it will see significant play anywhere else. Captured by the Consulate is an enchantment that costs 1 white and 3 generic. Enchant creature you don't control. Enchanted creature can't attack. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if it has a single target, change the target to enchanted creature if able. Now this is a really interesting take on this type of pacifism effect. The creature can still block, but also becomes a lightning rod for all of your opponent's removal or pump spells. I think this card would be very annoying to play against, but I'm unsure if it's good enough at 4 mana. I will definitely be giving it some playtest time in the future to find out though. Cataclysmic Gearhulk. It's an artifact creature for a 3 and 2 white, a 4/5 with vigilance. When Cataclysmic Gearhulk enters the battlefield, each player chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents he or she controls. Then sacrifices the rest. Ah yes, the first of our cycle of the fixed titans. Alright, I know this is an artifact, but it isn't colorless, so I'm covering the Gearhulk cycle in their respective colors. First off, this guy is not Tragic Arrogance with legs. In the case of Cataclysmic Gearhulk, they get to choose what they keep. So instead of leaving them with the worst options available, like Tragic Arrogance, it leaves them with the best. Still, putting that effect on a decent body probably means this guy is worth playing, and I think it is much better versus an aggro deck that is going wide than a deck with one huge creature in play. All that being said, and even though it isn't Tragic Arrogance, the effect is very powerful, and I expect Cataclysmic Gearhulk to be pulling a lot of weight along with the rest of his brethren. Consul's Shield Guard. White and 3 generic for a 3/4 Dwarf Soldier. When Consul's Shield Guard enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy counters. When Consul's Shield Guard attacks, you may pay an energy counter. If you do, another target attacking creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Alright, this guy has a decent body, and even though it is important to note that he can't give himself indestructible, only another creature, it is a powerful ability. However, I think his mana cost is just a bit too high to fit into the type of aggressive strategies that would like to have what he brings to the table. Fragmentize, 1 white for a sorcery that says destroy target artifact or enchantment with converted mana cost 4 or less. So, another card that would see a lot more play if sideboards were a thing in Magic Duels. As it is, unless one or more artifact decks begin to dominate, then I don't think this card will see a lot of play. If our machine overlords arise, however, things will be much different. Gearshift Ace. For a white and a generic, we get a Dwarf Pilot, who is a 2/1 first striker, and whenever Gearshift Ace crews a vehicle, that vehicle gains first strike until end of turn. Ah yes, our first pilot card. Pilots give bonuses to vehicles that they crew, and first strike is a decent bonus to give. If this guy sees play, it certainly won't be in a human's deck. He's a dwarf, laddie. And I'm not sure if he's actually good enough to play over other options. But vehicles are interesting, and pilots are interesting, and I'm interested to see what they can do together. Plus, dwarves are a thing again, and dwarf pilots are a thing as well. There might be something there. Glint Sleeve Artisan is 1 white and 2 generic for a 2/2 Dwarf Artificer with Fabricate 1. Alright, as I hinted with the last card and stated kind of bluntly a few cards previously, there may be a dwarf deck lurking, and it may want to pilot a bunch of flashy race cars. If all that is true, then this guy is pretty great. A 2/2 plus a 1/1 for 3 mana seems like something that a deck like that might want. Master Trinketeer. For 1 white and 2 colorless, we get a 3/2 Dwarf Artificer who has servos and thopters you control get +1/+1. And for a white and 3 colorless, you can create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. Jeskai Thopters, anyone? Artifacts with white? There are several cards in white in this set, mind you, that kind of push in this direction. So he's a servo/thopter lord that can also make servos, albeit at more mana than he actually costs to cast. He seems really good though. Don't expect him to live too long, as he has a gigantic target on his head, so I wouldn't expect to be pumping out an army of servos with him, though sometimes you will be able to do just that. Propeller Pioneer is 1 white and 3 generic for a 2/1 human artificer with flying and Fabricate 1. Alright, so another card that can generate a servo. This one, however, seems to be a bit expensive for what it offers. I don't think 4 mana is a great rate for what this card is doing. There are probably better options. Refurbish. A white and 3 colorless for a sorcery that allows you to return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Oh yes, the Artifact Zombify. It's a better cost for a reanimate effect than we currently have. Being in white means that you don't actually have to play black in the same deck. This card seems like it could be a thing, especially if Gear Hulks turn out to be as stupid good as they seem. Of course, I could just be riding the old nostalgia train back to the Solar Flare days of yore. I guess time will tell. Revoke Privileges is 1 white and 2 colorless for an enchantment that enchants a creature, and enchanted creature can't attack, block, or crew vehicles. I don't really like this card. It's not doing something new and interesting like Captured by the Consulate. Still though, we did not get Stasis Snare when Battle for Zendikar released. And maybe this is a decent replacement, however Stasis Snare has flash, and this card certainly doesn't. Oh well, shrug I guess, maybe it is a good replacement. I might play it I guess, but I'm not excited about it. Sky Swirl Harrier is 1 white and 4 generic for a 3/4 flyer. I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet. There are better things to be doing with your 5 mana than this. Plus, it's just boring. Sky Whaler's Shot. 1 white and 2 generic for an instant that destroys target creature with power 3 or greater, and you get to scry 1. Alright now, this is the 3-drop removal I was looking for. I like this much more than Revoke Privileges. Same cost, instant speed, and you get to scry. I mean sure, it can't kill small little dorks, but man, can it murder medium sizes and up. Thriving Ibex. For a white and 3 colorless, you get a 2/4 goat. When Thriving Ibex enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy counters, and whenever Thriving Ibex attacks, you may pay 2 energy counters, and if you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Okay, remember that I've not yet played with energy cards. That being said, I think that this card is too much mana for what it's doing. There are better cards in this vein in the set, so I think this one probably takes a back seat to its betters. Toolcraft Exemplar, 1 white for a 1/1 Dwarf Artificer. At the beginning of combat, on your turn, if you control an artifact, Toolcraft Exemplar gets +2/+1 until end of turn. If you control 3 or more artifacts, it also gains first strike until end of turn. So, he becomes a 3/2, and then a 3/2 with first strike. Well, you know what? I guess white is the color to pair with your aggressive artifact deck. Yeah, I think that has become abundantly clear. A 3/2 for 1 is very, very strong. Add first strike to the mix, and it's kind of ridiculous. I think Toolcraft Exemplar is going to see quite a bit of play if artifacts are at all prevalent in Magic Duels. Trusty Companion. For 1 white and 1 generic, you get a 3/2 Hyena with Vigilance, and Trusty Companion can't attack alone. You know, I've never really liked the can't attack alone or can't block alone creatures. This one is no exception. And it's not even a dwarf. So much fail. Visionary Augmenter. For 2 white and 2 generic, we get a 2/1 Dwarf Artificer with Fabricate 2. You know, I like this card a lot better than its Flying Kin that only makes 1 servo for the same cost. Plus, it's a dwarf. And an artificer. Will dwarves be the new humans? I guess we will have to wait and see. Whisper Weaver Angel. For 2 white and 4 generic, we get a 4/4 Angel with flying. When Whisper Weaver Angel enters the battlefield, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Well, this is the fixed version of Restoration Angel, and personally, I think they fixed her a bit too much. All the way down to trash tier. I mean, she doesn't even have flash anymore. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. And that brings us to the end of the white cards Kaladesh is bringing to Magic Duels. Overall, white seems to have a good mix of aggressive creatures and decent removal, just like always. So what are the standouts? Well, as with the colorless cards, I'll give my top 5 in white. No honorable mentions this time though. Coming in at number 5, we have Master Trinketeer. Thopters and servos, or maybe just servos, could be a very real archetype soon. And this guy will be the high king of those decks, should they come to prominence. Number 4, Angel of Invention. I can't help but think that the Angel will find a home in several strategies. If only she were a rare instead of a mythic. Alas, we are limited to 1 copy. Number 3, Sky Whaler's Shot. You know, white has missed out on a lot of removal that came in Paper Magic in the sets that were released. So I'm very glad to add this one to my arsenal. Coming in at number 2, Toolcraft Exemplar. White seems to be the color you want to pair with artifacts if you are going the aggressive route, and Exemplar is super aggressive for sure. Expect to see a lot of 3/2 1-mana Exemplars coming your way in the future. And number 1, Cataclysmic Gearhulk. Yeah, I know, I may have seemed a bit down on the card, but the effect is undeniably powerful even with your opponent choosing what they keep instead of you, and I look for the Gearhulks as a whole to make some amount of splash in the format. And I'm excited to cast some of those Titans myself. Well, that will do it for this installment. Join me next time when we go through the blue cards of Kaladesh. Thanks so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please leave a like below. It helps tremendously. And subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. I have been Tevaron, and until next time, friends, be excellent to each other.